It all started when the grandson decided to clear out his grandfather's old shed. Behind mountains of junk, under a dusty tarp and layers of cobwebs, he stumbled upon a 1969 Ford Mustang. Rusted, the hood sagging, cracked windshield, half-rotten tires. It looked like nothing more than a pile of scrap metal, but the grandson immediately understood this was a legend. And it deserved to be brought back to life. This Mustang had been sitting in the garage for over 20 years. The grandfather once dreamed of restoring it, but as the years passed, his health faded, time slipped away. And the car just sat there, forgotten. But not broken. At first, the grandson and his friends had to literally drag it out of the shed. The rear wheels were frozen solid, the brakes completely seized. They had to jack it up and roll it out on supports. The body was covered in a crust of rust, and under the hood was a mouse nest. Instead of oil, the engine held thick, black sludge. They loaded the car onto a flatbed and hauled it off to his garage. That's where the real work began. First up, the engine. The grandson removed the old V8 302, tore it down to the last bolt. Pistons were seized, bearings worn down, the camshaft was deeply scored. He cleaned every part by hand, polished and replaced worn-out valves, installed new gaskets. The crankshaft had to be machined, the block honed and measured. Then came reassembly, new piston rings, clean oil channels, precise tolerances. And when the engine was finally back in, it wasn't a rusty corpse anymore. It was a breathing, growling beast. Next, the transmission. The old manual gearbox was completely stripped. Worn synchros, chewed up gears, and the clutch disc just crumbled in his hands. He rebuilt it all, and tuned the shifter until the gear changes were razor sharp. The brakes were a total nightmare. The master cylinder was dead, the brake lines corroded through. The grandson ran all new lines, rebuilt the drums, replaced the shoes. He bled the clutch and brakes from scratch. Finally, the pedals felt firm and responsive. Suspension, rotted bushings, leaking rear shocks, sagging front springs. He removed everything he could, swapped in new shocks, cleaned and polished the control arms, and pressed in fresh bushings. The car stood level and proud once again. With the mechanicals complete, the grandson turned to the bodywork. He sanded away every speck of rust down to bare metal, welded shut holes in the doors and rockers, undercoat the bottom. Then came primer, and a coat of deep black paint, so glossy it reflected the world around it. On top, 2 layers of clear coat and a mirror-like polish. The interior was next. The old seats were rotted through, the upholstery crumbled at a touch. He installed brand new black leather seats with red stitching, reupholstered the headliner, restored the dashboard. Wired up the original radio, even fitted a classic ticking clock like the original. Inside, the Mustang felt once again like what it was always meant to be, a true muscle car. Nearly 6 months passed, and finally, the moment came. The grandson fired up the engine. The roar was deep and smooth, like the car had just rolled off the factory line. He rolled out of the garage, gleaming chrome wheels spinning, straight pipe exhaust growling, pride in every turn of the wheel. And he drove. Back to where it all began. To his grandfather. The old man was sitting on the porch, as always. He heard the rumble, lifted his head. In front of him, a black Mustang. Shiny. Alive. He stood up, stepped closer, as if not believing his eyes. Ran his hand across the hood. Stopped. Silent. Then, his eyes filled with tears. He said, "I thought it was dead." And the grandson replied, "No, it was just waiting." A minute later, the grandfather was in the driver's seat. He pressed the clutch, slipped it into first. His hands trembled, and then they drove. Together, the grandson and the grandfather. The Mustang lived again, not just as a car, but as a memory, a soul, a whole life on 4 wheels.